You are listening to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda. On this episode, I am delighted to welcome Taron Cochrane for a great conversation. Taron is a lifelong propaganda fan and senior communications officer at CBC in Canada. You've likely seen his work recently, since he is the web author of Propaganda Remains Calm Inside the Storm, a recent article that he wrote about Jim Agapito's CBC video interview, which was Propaganda's first ever interview with CBC. Taron and I chat about his love of resisting tyrannical government, True, and then dig into the new single, At Peace, from Propaganda's forthcoming 8th LP. You can find the link to Taron's article and Jim's video interview in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. Taron Cochrane, welcome to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I am delighted that you're here. Taron, why don't you just go ahead and tell the listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. My history is it's a pretty weird one. Present day, I do work for CBC Saskatchewan and CBC Saskatoon. I'm a senior communications officer. I'm generally the fellow in the background, community-minded events, sponsorships, branding, marketing. But then also, because of my history and my life, I do kind of weasel my way onto radio here and there. I've done a few radio segments. I support punk rock. I support local music. I actually had to sit down, Greg, and write down a list of my history because it's a lot. And there's a lot of weird stuff inside it. And I can just give you a quick overview.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm a punk rocker from a small town called Strasbourg, Saskatchewan. I was the kid in school with the 2 pink mohawks and almost a dozen facial piercings and the homemade dog collars. I've had 15 years in the Saskatchewan music industry and media landscape, usually talking about music. 25 years ago, I was doing graphic design for punk bands and bands in general, using the power of MySpace, if you can
Nice.
I've worked with the Regina Symphony Orchestra. I've ran my own PR company. My first clients were the Irish Rovers from Canada, which is a big deal for me. And yeah, it's been interesting. Some of the weird stuff in my career has certainly been, I was on national news 5 times. Once to celebrate Mick Jagger's 70th birthday, I was on CTV National News. I woke up one morning, they're like, "Do you want to come on and talk about Mick Jagger on his birthday?" And I was like, "Sure, I do."
Yeah.
As well, too, I've had some fun moments in my life. I got to introduce DOA on the stage at Regina's legendary venue, The Exchange, for their 40th anniversary, Hardcore 81. I got to sit side stage in Edmonton with KJ from Chicks Dig It the night before the Descendants' Milo Goes to College turned 40 and watched the band play live. Fat Mike was there as well. And there's a really bizarre tie into that. I took a video from the stage of the band with Fat Mike watching the band, and Fat Mike took a video behind himself, and I'm behind him recording. So you can watch Fat Mike's Instagram video of me behind. Anyway, it's
awesome.
Yeah, it's wild. And then I've also, probably the weirdest thing I've done, because I grew up in Morel, Saskatchewan, and my life is polka. So my 2 main loves in life are polka and punk rock.
Sweet.
And during the pandemic, I couldn't get over the fact that Canada's King of Polka, Walter Osnick, who's revered, he's won 3 Grammy Awards, star on Canada's Walk of Fame, Order of Canada recipient, how his discography was kind of scattered and not all there and not easily accessible. And so I found and digitized and collected his entire 107 album, 60+ year career discography. I think I'm the only person in North America to do that, and that's what I did during the pandemic. So polka and punk, it's my 2 passions. So, and then the punk rock side of things, I can ramble on about CBC tie-ins and stuff I've done here as well too. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, you're on a very niche and obscure podcast right here, one that is committed to the work of one band, essentially. Yep. So tell me a little bit about your overview of your fandom of Propaganda, this band that we both love so much and have in common.
Oh my God. Yeah. So it really starts out with, I did do a CBC story, a radio story about the history of the compilation album. And I had Joey Cape on because Lagwagon was on a lot of the fat ones. And the compilation originated in Saskatchewan. A band by the name of Philip Kivas started a company called KTEL Records. But compilations were a huge deal. So back in my day, one of my best friends from birth and until death, Brian Adamson from Beaulieu, Saskatchewan, he was one of my musical compasses. And so Brian, I remember, found this really cheap compilation called "Survival of the Fattest," and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, listen to it, and there's songs, like there's a High Standard covering the Mamas and the Papas. There's obviously a Lagwagon. There's Diesel Boy Titty Twister was a huge song, but then Nation States, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you heard the lyrics and you heard Chris's almost like Tommy Gunn style approach to singing lyrics at the start, just one after the other, real quick. And it got its hooks in me, and I couldn't get over how great that song was. And then that actually led to my first ever punk show. And this is maybe something where I'll ask your listeners to help out with. But so I had to travel. So coming to the big city was a big deal, and you did it like once a month, right? Because you had to travel back and forth, and it'd be a 2 hour trip just driving alone through the valley. And Propaganda was playing in the Let's Talk More Rock tour, and they were playing. And this is where I need your listeners' help. They were playing
Sure.
with two openers, Proposition 304 and GI Joke, and I can't find anything out about those bands, where they were from. I
Okay.
remember the names, but I don't remember where was this band from. Were they from Manitoba as well? Were they from? I don't know anything. So if anybody knows anything about those two bands, please let me know.
Where was
So
that show again?
so the show was at the Exchange in Regina.
Okay. Okay.
And what's iconic about the Exchange is that they have held some of the best shows ever. It's simply just a box of a building, and
Yeah.
it has become revered. It is the punk venue in Regina. In the back green room, if you want to call it that, they have all their bricks are hand signed by bands that have played there through the decades, and it was wild because I remember, like, I remember it clear as day. I could even tell you what I was wearing. Like I had white Liberty spikes in my hair, and green and yellow plaid pants. But what shocked me was when I got there is people were lined up around the block for this
Mm-hmm.
band, right? And at the time, when Let's Talk More Rock came out, and I'm sure you and many of your listeners and other Propaganda fans can attest to the fact that when they put those words on the front of that album, the gay positive,
Yeah.
pro feminine, like
Crucial.
crucial. No other punk band was doing that. I mean, at the
Right.
time, like Bad Religion is another one of my favorite bands of all time. Bad Religion makes me think, but Propaganda makes me feel,
Mm.
and I just couldn't get over that a band, especially from my neck of the woods, from somewhere I called home, from the prairies of Canada, uh, was talking about such important issues and raising awareness about things. So at the show, it was crazy. I remember that just seeing a lineup of people, and I remember it felt like to me going inside this box and the show itself. It felt and looked, and in my mind's eye, I just picture like people crawling up the walls when the band played. Like they were going absolutely mental for Propaganda, and then to double down, they had somebody talking between the sets to talk about important issues. And I was like, who
Mm-hmm.
else? Who else is doing this? And the fact that
Yeah.
they were doing it was so commendable and so appreciated because it opened up a young mind of mine, and just to be like, this stuff is very important, and there's a lot of things in the world that we should really champion for, fight for, care about, and consider more when we're in our day-to-day lives. And that show and that really set me off to like, this band is incredible, and I will follow this band for as long as I possibly can. And that show, yeah, it was just that peak show in that one moment, because everybody has those triggers. You obviously had a trigger when you discovered Propaganda. um Everybody, we're fortunate that we all have musical compasses, and we all have those moments where something happens. I mean, I fell in love with punk rock originally when I saw Rancid Salvation music video, and I was like, that's it. Like, I'm a punk rocker. There's no question. I mean, that's it. And regardless, I had no worries about bullying or perception or treatment. My hometown was fantastic. I never really encountered that. And so just being comfortable in your own skin. And I think even the music and lyrics and sounds of Propaganda give us the permission to do that, right? To be who you want to be, and fight for what you think is important.
Man, that's great. Okay, so was that your first show ever, you
Yeah.
said?
Yeah.
Your first show was Propaganda?
Right? Isn't that right? So
Okay, was it a John or a Todd show? Do you remember who was playing bass?
I think, oh my God. See, now keeping in mind, this is pre-internet and pre-cell phones, so you couldn't have 400 pictures from a show to remember it by.
Right.
I
Yeah.
feel like it was John, but I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I think it was probably John because
Yeah,
John was in the band for the first half of '96, and then Todd's first shows started in the winter of '96. So
it wasn't winter,
if it was not winter, if it was
not
not
winter.
December, then it was most likely John because I believe Todd's first shows were December of '96.
Okay,
So those are some of the earliest ones that start popping up online. As far as I can tell, Todd is a very late addition in '96. So you may
very
have
cool.
caught one of the very, very last John K. Samson shows, which is pretty sweet.
Oh man, pretty sweet, I'd say. And I mean, yeah, it that show you never really realize in the moment sometimes the impact something will have when you're in it. You never
Yeah,
realize it. I'm going to reflect on this almost 30 years later.
it's
You never
crazy.
think about that. It's crazy to think, right? Like this specific moment. And at the time, I was probably worrying about like acne or dating or, like I had something else in my head. And I certainly wasn't thinking like, I'm going to be talking on a podcast about this 30 years down the road, right? Which is
What
crazy.
is a podcast? 30
I
years
know,
ago,
right?
this didn't even
Oh my
exist.
God. Yes.
The only way you could do media like this 30 years ago is if you were recording it and like putting it out in a zine that was written,
Exactly.
or
Right.
if you had a job at a radio station. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Stuff like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
little do-it-yourself approach, this stuff didn't exist back then, which I am just so delighted that I do this. It's the best hobby ever. Okay, so 96 you saw him.
Yeah.
Do you have any other stories of seeing them live over the next 28 9
No,
days? What are you gonna
honestly, do you know what? No. I just poor timing. I know they played the District, which was another iconic venue that was originally the Schnitzel House, I believe, which was like a Polish restaurant where Sask's first ever punk band, the Extroverts, played.
do? Hmm.
2007. I missed that. And then I missed the later shows, like the later teens of 2000s. And then the one time I was going to have my redemption and actually see them again, COVID hit and canceled the show.
Yeah.
So
Well, here's another thing. I went to the October of 2021 shows, the three in a row they did in
hmm,
Winnipeg at the Park Theater. So if they announce those shows, you should come because I'm going
absolutely. Are
and
you
we can
going? Oh,
hang.
right on. That'd be awesome.
They haven't announced any shows yet in Canada for the new
Yeah.
record, but if they when they do get announced, like the next thing I will be doing is either going to Southern Ontario shows or Winnipeg. So
I was
see you
just at,
there.
have you ever been to the Park Theater?
Yeah, I saw three shows there in 2021.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. You were just saying that. Yeah. 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 Oh, man. The Park Theater's fantastic. I was actually just there for work and, we did so Women in Music Manitoba released an album called Her 204 One Great City Revisited, which is
Hmm.
obviously a nod to John's band, The Weaker Thans.
Yeah.
And it's all female, gender diverse artists from Manitoba covering old songs from back in the day.
Hmm.
And
What's that
there's
name?
a
What's the name of that record again?
Her 204, One Great City Revisited. And so I was there for work and we helped with the launch and stuff. And we did some live in studio stuff at CBC Manitoba. But yeah, there's Hymn of the Medical Oddity by Weakerlands is covered on that one. But anyway, I'm trailing off here, but
Amazing.
yeah,
All
fantastic.
right. So, Taryn, when I reached out to you, I said that you need to pick your propaganda podium. Okay.
Mm,
Your top three, maybe not your favorite on any given day, but for the sake of this conversation, I wanted you to nail down three. I love
yeah.
doing conversations like this. I don't do many conversations like this anymore. I've done so many of these episodes in the past that I kind of got away from it. But when the opportunity came to have you on to talk about the article that you wrote in conjunction with the Jim Agapito video interview that you recently did for CBC, I couldn't help but doing a propaganda podium episode.
Yeah,
So
fantastic.
I want to go in the order that these songs are released
Okay.
chronologically. So the first one that you chose is Resisting Tyrannical Government from 1996, Let's Talk More Rock. Um, why did you pick this particular song as one of your propaganda podium?
Well, I mean, first thing is to me, I mean, any fan of propaganda, I'm sure anybody listening to this is already a fan, and if not, fantastic. Welcome to the club. If you're not,
Yeah.
because you're going to be a deep fan by the time you dive into their discography. But for this one, this song really, I felt like Chris, his analogies and satire was really peek here. The opening lines from the song, right? Like, why don't we all strap bombs to our chests and ride our bikes on the next G7 picnic?
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays you can hear that and instinctively go on your phone, go on the internet, and go, what is G7? What's the G7 committee? And you can find all this information out within seconds. But back in those days, you didn't, and you had to figure that out. But that's a heavy state. Like talking about kids riding their bikes with bombs strapped on their chest. I'm like, the visual alone. And I mean, there's a couple other lines that I really, really loved. I don't want to be the Steve Smith of the Revolution, which I think
Hmm.
if you're a hockey fan, and I mean, I was a hockey fan. I was a major fan of the Flames. I played hockey as a kid. I don't want to brag. 88, 89, 90, Strasbourg Bergen's most sportsmanlike player. But anyway, so back in the day, like the Flames and Edmonton rivalry and the Steve Smith story about how he scored on his own team and lost the Oilers the game in the playoff is just like, I don't want to be the Steve Smith of the Revolution. Like if you taught, that's mind-meltingly smart. You know, how he tied in like some reference to hockey, which is, peak Canada. And then, like the Jesus saves, Gretzky scores, the worker slave, the rich get more. And the best line was play the man, not the puck. I thought that was in that song specifically, because when you're playing hockey and when you're practicing, they tell you that all the time. Always play the man, not the puck. But just that using that, adolescent approach to teaching kids the sport of hockey as a means of social change or like play the man, not the puck is phenomenal. And so I just really love the fact that he said that. And then, I mean, the real kicker for me too with this song was how at the end of it, and that's exactly why privileged fucks like me feel obliged to want to kick and scream. Like he's recognizing that, hey, he's got, white male privilege but
Yeah.
but that's until everyone gets everything they need. Oh
Yeah,
my God,
dude.
right? Like,
That line, that closing line on resisting tyrannical government might be the best lyric on
absolutely.
the entire record.
Yeah, absolutely. Right?
If not a top five lyric in the entirety of Propagandy's discography. Like
Well,
I'll put that line up against anything.
hands down. I mean, he lays it out and he's like, whatever you want to say, this is, I mean, it rationalizes the fight. And I think just, there's no argument now. You can't, it's like, this is explains why I'm doing what we're doing. Right. So,
Yeah,
yeah, 100% agree.
so sweet. Okay, this next one that you picked, I'm so pumped about because I love this song so much, but it's a cover,
Hmm.
and you chose "True," the Concrete Blonde cover that appeared on a Fat compilation. This is also, I don't know if you know this, but this is the first recorded performance of Todd Kowalski in the band.
And I knew that, I knew that because I listened to your podcast.
Dude, I'm so glad. Thank you so
And
much for
so,
listening to the podcast.
yeah, and I loved it because Todd's from Regina, so it was like a kinship. You're like, oh my God, somebody from Regina. Yeah, anyway, yeah, that's phenomenal, right? Like,
Yeah.
what a
Are
brilliant
you
moment.
are you a Concrete Blonde fan?
I am, and it's weird because everybody I feel has you have influences. You have what was a term I thought about for it? Like you almost have a musical. Like, do you know how you have ancestry? We all have
Yeah.
musical. Like, my grandfather was huge into Irish music. My grandmother on the other side, and grandfather were polka and old style country fans. My dad, even though he was a rugged blue collar fella, he loved 80s power ballads. And my
Mm.
sister was a headbanger. And so all that stuff came at me. And then I fell in love with punk rock. So there was a lot of 80s influence in my youth. Belinda Carlisle, your Journeys and Concrete Blondes and stuff like that. But one thing I liked, Greg, about this song was that so when it came out, number one, I was on a class trip. It was our graduation trip. Went camping way up northern Saskatchewan, and I had a little the Discman. My sister had a Discman that I borrowed that would skip if you didn't hold it right, and I had the physical fatten this CD. You dive into again back in the day with no internet, you dive into liner notes and you dive into lyrics, and I couldn't get over the fact that at that time in my head, propaganda was a very big deal, and they had done so many great things. And that would be from a marketing business standpoint, that would be the time to go, hey, we got a new album. We're going to tease it with a song,
Yeah.
right? Like you put a new single on there and you get people intrigued. But propaganda was like, no, screw that. We love Concrete Blonde. We're doing a Concrete Blonde cover.
Yeah.
And And it was kind of like the early days, um, giving you a taste that coming down the line, they were gonna like really lean into their influences more, whether it be the thrash metal Eraser and Sacrifice and stuff like that, or it's Concrete Blondes. Like your podcast episode where you and Chris ran through his solo effort, right?
One of my
Was
favorite
incredible.
episodes I ever made.
Oh my God. I couldn't stop listening to it. Like it almost obstructed my plans for the day because I'm like, I got to keep listening to this podcast. So I need to do something where I can have an earphone in.
Man, that episode was like four and a half
Good.
hours long too. When you add in all the guests from that performed on the record, like one of my favorite top episodes of any of the 500 plus podcast episodes I've ever made is that one.
Oh, so good. And it's just like to actually hear it from the horse's mouth and like
Yeah,
why you did this. But just the fact that like he talks about, Concrete Blonde being a crush and he liked the
yeah.
music, but he's a teen, right? So I was like, this,
Jeanette, amazing voice.
yeah, right? Like, but the fact too that the band took this opportunity to go, hey, we're going to be on this big comp. Comps were huge back then. The band was huge. And no, we're paying tribute to a band we love. I was like, that's commendable. And that's what
Yeah.
I really appreciate. And so I listened to, I kind of think about that too. And it reminds me of that trip too, because I remember we had two options. You could either stay back home in the hometown and have a rager of a party, or you can go on an adventure and learn about nature and go on a trip. And we did that. But we also did mischievous things. We threw cans of food in the fire until they exploded and they shot off like fireworks. And we did stupid teenager stuff too. But yes, it's great memories.
I love it. Well, those man, those first two Concrete Blonde records, whenever I was doing this podcast, I went back and I listened to all those records and like Free and Bloodletting, like those records are so good.
Right?
And then I was like thinking like, man, this voice is so familiar. And then I put it together later that Jeanette sang a verse on Bad Religion Recipe for Hate. And I was
Which
like,
is nuts.
come on. And then you
I
start to
know.
realize the way all the musical world is like interlinked and it's just
Oh,
so,
we're all
so
connected,
cool.
right? Isn't that the best? And I just love the fact that in some way, shape, somebody once told me, especially in the Canadian music industry, it feels like there's 20 people. Like everybody's connected to everybody. I mean, that's just the way it is, right? Bands,
Yeah.
and industry, and all of that. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about something that's happening right now. Okay,
Mm.
you and Jim Agapito from CBC recently did an article and a video version of an interview with the band, and I'm looking at yours right now on cbc.ca called Propaganda Remains Calm Inside the Storm. Exclusive CBC Manitoba interview shows a band finding peace in today's world. You wrote the print edition. Jim
Mm.
Agapito from CBC Manitoba did the video edition live from the band's practice space. Um,
Undisclosed location.
undisclosed location. Tell me how you and Jim got to collaborate on this article and this video.
Yeah. This is kind of a wild story. So, I work at CBC Saskatchewan. There's a few initiatives that they're doing here, and one is to create a prairie region. So amalgamate Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. Now, my manager also manages communications for Manitoba, so we've already kind of worked in tandem with them already. But as part of that, I've somebody told me I was a unicorn because I've kind of shaped my career and my work efforts around music because I love music. So they tapped me on the shoulder to go help with that Her 204 album release in Manitoba. And so when I went there, when I travel alone without my family, I'm restless, and so I go do weird things. When I was in Winnipeg, I went and saw a punk show at the Handsome Daughter. I saw the Imploders, and it was incredible. And then I do think I talk to coworkers. I like to get to know people. How does things work? How does your show work? And so the morning I went to that punk show, I actually went on to the weekend morning show at like 5 a.m. And anyway, so as part of that, I was just kind of roaming the halls and I ran into Jim. And Jim does a really incredible, if you haven't listened to it, it's called Recovering Filipino. And so
Mm.
it's a CPC podcast where he kind of talks about his cultural heritage. And what makes Jim extra cool in my eyes is Jim is also an old punk rocker. And he's got a band called Agapito. And so I just saw him down the hall and I was like, oh my God, I mean, I know it's my coworker, but I was like, that's Jim Agapito. And so
Yeah.
I actually had a really cool because I'm in the marketing side of this place. I had a recovering Filipino Bluetooth speaker that somebody had given me, a colleague had given me, and so I went up to Jim and I was like, "Hey man, like, do you have another one of those speakers? Like, I can't find mine." And he said, "No," but then we got to talking and we started talking about punk rock, and then it gets really weird. So then that day went across the street from the CBC Manitoba office to Stella Cafe in Winnipeg, which was incredible food. And we're sitting there, and I'm sitting with my coworkers, and I look to my right, and Jord is sitting right beside me, having lunch with a friend. And I mean, I've never met the guys. I've never met any band member. And so I look at him awkwardly, and he looks at me, and I kind of feel like, oh shit, like he probably thinks this. I'm just some weirdo staring at him. Then I was kind of frazzled. My coworkers are saying like, "What's going on? Why do you seem out of sorts?" And I said, "Well, because the drummer from Propaganda is like right next to me here." And so I was like, "Screw it." So I got up and I went and chatted with him, and I had a fantastic conversation with him.
He's
And
so great to talk to.
oh,
He's
nice.
such a good conversation partner.
Oh my God. And he just told, I asked about the new album, talked about the first show that I was telling you about. And then I just I had questions. I had so many questions for him, touring and the album and the style of the album. And I wanted to give him some tidbits. And then I was like, well, that was fantastic. And what an experience. And I literally was buzzing the rest of the day. So a little bit later, I bump into Jim again, and I say to Jim, "Hey, like you're not going to believe this, but I ran a Jord from Prop Candy across the street," and he's like, "Yeah, I know those guys really well." And he goes, "By the way, I'm doing an exclusive interview with the band," and I was like, "And because one thing I like to do is be aware of kind of what's happening in our ecosystem, and I know that Chris did a national interview with Tom Power on Q,
Yeah, it's a great interview.
phenomenal, right? But I had never heard of the band themselves doing a full interview with CBC. Like it's never in 30 plus years, nobody's ever done that. And so the
Yeah.
fact that Jim had told me he was doing one with them, I was like, well, this is too much. Like, so I said, all right, well, um, tell me a little bit about what you're doing. And he did. And then we just kept in touch. And then I found out that Jim didn't, Jim's a pro journalist, really fantastic, very talented man, but he didn't really understand a little bit about the marketing side of it. And so I
Hmm.
said, well, if I get approval from can I help you? Can I write the web story? Can I help push it to places like we got it on Alan Cross's Journal of Musical Things newsletter? Can I send it around to shows? Because I like to take stuff that we make regionally and push it to a national audience. I've done that with my own radio segment, the Local Music Minute that I did. I've also liked to do that with other colleagues' work, and so we pushed the CBC music, which didn't pick it up, but because they're knee deep in the Junos, CBC Arts picked it up nationally. Even all over Reddit. Jim's video. It's been out for a week, that interview, and it's got 46,000 views currently, which is
Yeah.
bananas. But then the kicker to it all, Greg, was that so this was all a really exciting time. And then of course when these little triggers and these little moments happen, and now I'm really into listening to Propaganda. And sitting in the Winnipeg airport, waiting to fly home to Regina, I was checking my phone, waiting for my flight. I got like half hour to go. And I get a notification, new Propaganda single. Oh my God. Right. So
Yeah.
I just met Jord. I just found out they're doing an exclusive interview with CBC. There's a new single, first single in 8 years, and it fucking rips. Like,
Yeah.
so I listened to it as loud as I possibly could in my headphones, like on repeat, like standing on the tarmac, waiting to get into a plane to Regina with this song just, and I mean, God, that song, it's my favorite song of the year. There's so much to it, you know? And I
Yeah.
think it's the perfect storm of experiences and moments and stuff just kind of tying into each other. But yeah, do you want to talk about that piece now as a
I do. Yeah. Real quick, couple of shout
sure.
outs. So you mentioned the Tom Power interview. Mitch
Mm-hmm.
Pollock, the
Oh yeah,
producer of
yeah,
that
yeah,
show.
yeah.
Great dude. Hi, Mitch,
Super
if
great.
you hear this. Also, shout out to Ryan Nash from the band Agapito and Agassi, Beeves'
Oh,
band. So
yeah, yeah.
Ryan, who now is in Beeves' new band, is also in Agapito. So a couple of shout outs to
Look at this.
some friends of the podcast there. It's a small world, man.
It's
Like
small. We're all connected.
if you start talking about stuff related to this band, I can find a connection somewhere else in this podcast. Like the world and the web is it links us all together. Okay, so let's talk about the song.
Sure.
Um, Lead single, new record, recorded by JP Peters in Winnipeg and Chris
Hmm.
Hanna in his private studio, and then mixed and mastered by Jason Livermore at the Blasting Room. Record comes out May 2nd, as everybody knows, on Epitaph. Tell me about the song. how it is resonating with you because you, like me, have heard this song probably 50 times at this point. So I'm curious what your thoughts and takeaways are about this song and how it's been sitting with you the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said, and this is probably 90% of the comments you read online about the song. Is there something to be said about timing,
Hmm.
right? And there couldn't be a more frustrating, anxiety-ridden moment in politics, in society than right now for us,
Yeah.
in many, many ways. Fear, all of the emotions. But the fact that I mean, the song starts off with that slow burn of it, just Chris and his wordplay and talking about things like prostrating yourself and, you know, saying seductively better than me is such a strong way to word that. Um,
Hmm.
but then it goes straight from that slow build, that slow burn to just Riff City, and it just melts faces. You're like, oh, like it just. There's a lot of those moments in the song that are just 0 to 60 moments, right? Where it goes from like you're just really enjoying it to just blazing. And then, I mean, lyrically, talking about the fact that we should be really thankful that we're even here, really, or maybe we should regret the fact that we're here. Like it, just the way he kind of goes back and forth with um, optimism and then pessimism, and then the I mean the Chris Hanna wit and the sarcasm, right? The draw dick on my face with a Sharpie, talk about the and even like the reference to the internet meme, right? Like, excuse me, sir, this is an Arby's is brilliance
Yeah.
personified.
What's so funny is that Arby's line is that people who listen to the podcast who live in Europe and UK wrote to
Oh no.
me and they were like, what does that Arby's thing mean? And I, as an American who fully understand that
Yeah,
joke,
yeah.
uh, had to explain this to several listeners who live across on the other side of the world, what that joke was all about. And the people were like, oh my gosh, that's so genius. Because it's like the
Right.
ranting person who comes up and it's like the angry white late 50s male who's just blah blah blah, this is wrong and this is wrong and blah blah blah. And I just love that joke about being like, okay, sir, what would you like to order for dinner? Okay, because it's like this lonely ranting person just
Yeah.
telling off somebody who is totally inappropriately being informed about this person's frustrations in the world and then having to draw them back into the real task at hand, which is just ordering your frickin' sandwich and fries, you know?
Well, another thing too that really hit home for me as a Canadian, which maybe people in Europe might not know, is like Bruce Cockburn is a big deal here,
Oh
and
yeah, so tell me about
that
that lyrical reference.
yeah, so Lovers in a Dangerous Time was huge. It was a huge Canadian hit, and so big, in fact, that when the Bare Naked Ladies, another huge Canadian
They
band, were
covered it.
starting, they covered it, and they took it to like, and that catapulted them. I mean,
Yeah.
it's revered here. It's revered like Stomping Tom and Murray. All of those. It put, in my opinion, put Bruce Cockburn on the map, really, within the fabric of Canadian society. But even just it's a very, very, very powerful line in it. Got to kick at the darkness so it bleeds daylight is poetry. It's pure
Yeah.
poetry. And the
Yeah.
fact that Chris took it and referenced it so perfectly, but then here's the thing about propaganda for me, and I'm sure you and many other people is like I don't want to slag Motley Crue fans, but it's like they're not as good as they were. And I mean, they not long ago released the Beastie Boys. I think it was a Fight for Your Right to Party cover, and it was real bad. And
Hmm.
so there's a sadness in our lives where sometimes as you age, things aren't as good as what they once were, right?
Yeah.
Musically and whatever else. But he hits that note after he sings that Bruce Cockburn line, and you're like,
Yeah.
this voice is like, what, right? It's just holy hell.
Yeah.
So it's like strength. And so I think it just shows you that this band is literally Benjamin buttoning it, right? Like they're just getting better with age.
Yeah.
And
Well, and they age with us. They don't give us
yeah.
the same thing over and over and over.
Mhm.
There's always so many new elements that come with each passing record where it's like, how can you give us something new whenever you are involved in like this almost like a pigeonholed scene in a lot of ways, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But they
Yeah,
constantly evolve, which is what my favorite thing about them is that I don't care how long it takes for there to be a new record because I know that when I get one, it's not going to be the same as the last one.
absolutely right. Did you catch that low end theory bass teacher reaction
Oh, yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
that piece?
Yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah. And hilariously, I just talked to Jason Livermore, who mixed and mastered the record, and he talked about that clip as well. So we are very big fans of Low End University on this podcast, and his
That's
love of propaganda, his developing fandom has been so wonderful because here's the thing about me is that I do my best to bring excellent commentary about this band to the world via this podcast. However, I only know so much about music and performance and musical choices that musicians make, which is something that I've always sought to seek out in guests. And I just love the fact that the low end university guy is so complexly and intricately detailed with his commentary about Todd because I love sharing his stuff because it's so nuanced and beautiful every single time. Maybe he'll come on the podcast someday. He and I have chatted a little bit,
that
but
would be fantastic.
his videos are so awesome though. So I'm glad that you saw that and enjoyed it too. Because not only have you enjoyed it, but man, the guy who mixed and mastered the record, Jason Livermore, is loving it too, which is pretty
That's
sweet.
cool. And the thing is like I like that it's a different take. He's pointing out things that I never thought about. And I mean, one
Hmm.
of it, maybe was it that video or another video he did of propaganda where he was talking about how normally in music the singer follows the band, and
Hmm.
in propaganda the band's following the singer, like for the
Yeah.
stops and the starts, and like the one to build up and slow down. It's like, wow, I never even thought of it that way, but it
Oh,
completely makes sense.
absolutely. Like in our Today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes episode that we
Yeah.
did very, very early on, I think it was like episode 12 or 13. My former co host and I, Keith, were talking about how so many of George's fills are aligned with the way that Chris delivers a lyric and how
Mhm.
a fill and a lyric is so like connected to each other in a way that a lot of bands really miss out on trying to hone in on for their own songs. So that's something that I have absolutely loved about this band forever is the ways that so many of the performance elements line up so adequately with what the lyrics are doing. And it's like, man, you really, that's not an accident. This is hard work.
Yeah, you guys are they're practicing, they're perfecting
Yeah,
their art, which is fantastic to hear and see, right? Like, oh my God.
absolutely. Okay, so you write this article, you and Jim collaborate. It's great. I was just reading it earlier. What's next? Like, what are you excited about as far as like your propaganda fandom? What are you hoping? What are you looking for next?
You know what? Here's what I hope and dream. So CBC has something called syndication, which is, if people aren't familiar with it, it's a service where stuff is sent out to every CBC across Canada with the intent of, hey, if you're doing a 2 hour afternoon radio show and you need to fill 3 minutes, here's a potential song you can grab. We do that. We do a lot of local content, like a lot. Actually, our CanCon, Canadian Content Regulations, CanCon is 30%, I think, for commercial radio. We hit 70 on our shows,
Hmm.
at least, probably more than that. But so anyway, syndication offers up interviews as well and stuff too. And I just I like seeing stuff get more attention on more CBCs around Canada. When the DOA tribute album came out, I lined up an interview with Joey Shithead on CBC Yukon because I was like, why not? Like Yukon, how cool. So that's my dream for propaganda is I want to see more CBC love from them. Whether it's through syndication or just stations picking up, because there's also a twofold approach. Because present day, our target demographic is also 30 to 49, which
Hmm.
is punk rock fans, and
Yeah.
especially propaganda fans. And so that's another goal as well too. So I just want to see more love across the country for a band who could not be more of a Canadian band. I mean, really, you want to talk about, being proud of where you're from. I mean, I think propaganda is a pretty great shining example of, I'm very proud that they're from the prairie. So I want to see them outside of, the comfort areas for a lot of shows and stuff and playing more punk rock. And, so I co-hosted, we have a noon hour call-in show across the province called Blue Sky, and I got to host it. And I also got given the keys to come up with a theme and line up the guests. And so I did one called Prairie Punk Rock, celebrating Prairie Punk Rock around the province. And I got to start the show with Anti-Manifesto, which I thought that ripped. And I thought as a teenager, like I wouldn't have even been able to fathom this happening. And I also got Raylene Perkins as a guest because I listened to her
Cool.
podcast interview with you. And so I got her to come in studio because I was so impressed that you had pegged somebody from Regina to go on your podcast. And I loved
That
her.
rocks. Raylene is
Right?
awesome. That Raylene Perkins. Woo. That's a great.
It was so cool. But anyway, so my hope and dream, and I mean, I think this album is going to do huge things. My buddy Brian Adamson was telling you about. I went and met up with him last night, and he was saying too that this album is going to blow the roof off. I mean, it's not like the band isn't huge already, but it's going to be a huge deal in our
Hmm.
hearts and minds, right? Like, and that's what I want to see. I want to see the band. I don't want to say get the respect they deserve because they obviously have. I mean, they have a whole podcast dedicated to it.
Yeah.
But I want to see more bass teachers on YouTube wildly discovering their music. I want more ears open to them. I think even from a social and mental and awareness aspect, from what they stand for and what they're singing about, to just a general enjoyment of music. I mean, I think more people need to know about this band, and I think getting airplay and getting on CBCs across the country is a simple step to making that happen, right?
Yeah. Well, and an amazing thing too is if you all can bring some new listeners to it, the stuff that
Absolutely.
they put out in 96, 2001, 2005, none of those things are dated. Like their
Mhm.
songs age better than any band on earth. And
Absolutely.
New Iron drawn across the 49th parallel from 2005. Come on, man. Our two
Right?
I'm in New York, you're in Saskatchewan, and our two countries are essentially beefing for the first time in hundreds of years.
Right?
Um, and so it is an absolutely important thing for bands like this to exist, because they make me feel like I am not alone and not going crazy whenever I see things that don't make sense to me whatsoever happening in the world. I live 3 miles from the Canadian border, and I love going to Canada. I lived in Canada for 2 years, and now I'm seeing all of this happen, and it's just so disappointing. And to me, this song at peace is like, I'm so disappointed. You know what I mean? And it's making me feel not alone. And
Absolutely.
but
100%.
it's like kick of the darkness till it bleeds daylight. Like just keep on punching in that disappointment because then the disappointment may eventually get shattered. Um,
Absolutely.
and we can break back through. Which, if you tie back to the supporting cast LP, there's the lyric, got to keep on trucking anyway. It's
Right.
like the
No,
critique, like the critiques and the
uh,
frustrations of the world are there. And then it always makes us think about that little teeny tiny kernel of hope, which this band does so regularly.
so well.
Well, Taron
Well,
Cochrane, CBC, I
yeah.
am delighted to
Must have been
chat
really nice.
about
I appreciate it.
chat about the record, the new record, how excited we all are, as well as a couple of you know, kind of forgotten songs, True and Resisting Tyrannical Government. Love chatting with you. Do you have any things that you would recommend people check out, or places to follow you if you would like for
Yeah, sure.
people to get in touch?
Yeah, you can find me. I'm off and on, but on Instagram at Taron Cochrane. My email is taron.cochrane@cbc.ca if you want to reach out, which bands have done. Actually, when the web story went up, bands reached out. You reached out on Instagram. I love hearing people. I love just hearing your stories. I love hearing new music. We actually had a woman reached out to me. Her husband and her live in Portage la Prairie, and
Mm,
she's in University of Brandon studying politics and media and the decline of rural prairies. And I'm like, what?
wow.
But she read the story. Yeah, it was really fascinating to talk to her. I love hearing from people. That's mainly the places you can find me. I'm on Facebook. I don't use X much anymore, which, by the way, just a quick X story. Um, a few years ago, Chris Hanna or Propagandy followed me on X, and I was like,
Yeah.
I think my brain melted at the time. Yeah, that's where you can find me. I love talking about music. I love to hear music recommendations. I want to hear your propaganda stories. I want to hear your recommendations. Maybe you're in a band. All of that stuff. Tell me the really powerful, CBC-ish stories that you have to share. And then another thing too, I just want to go out on, Greg, is I really have been listening. I've been trying to do an album a day and just kind of really dissect. And Failed States, things I like at the end when you hear the Anishinaabe one.
Yeah. Wab
Like,
Canoe.
Lab Canoe. I was like, the premier of Manitoba?
Hmm.
Like, oh my God. I was actually just talking. We have a CBC Indigenous unit here who focus on Indigenous storytelling. And one of them just released, like they've released several incredible stories about the importance of Indigenous languages and
Hmm.
maintaining them. There's even like ties into Edmonton. So anyway, so I was telling him that, and I was like, you got to listen to the song because at the end of it, right? Like it's just that's how you do it.
Man, I regret one of my biggest podcast regrets is that I did not go as hard as I possibly could to interview Wab Canoe before he became the premier of the province
Oh
for the
yeah.
podcast because he's impossible to get a hold of. You
Oh, of course.
can't
No, 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 no.
you
Yeah.
can't get to him. And so I that is like one of my biggest like white whales is maybe someday I will get Wab Canoe. I've emailed him, no response obviously.
You never
Um,
know. Maybe one day.
maybe one day, but an
No.
amazing like, and I just got to give a shout out to what he's doing
Yeah.
with searching landfills for murdered and kidnapped women and who have been murdered and killed and their bodies dumped. I am so impressed with his efforts because so many people in Manitoba were like, you can't do that, it'll be too expensive. But Wab Canoe has been leading the charge to recover Indigenous women's bodies from landfills across the province. Absolutely amazing efforts. And I just wanted to publicly say on the podcast how impressed I am to see a person in politics actually doing something powerful like that.
Matters a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Good seeing.
Well, Taron Cochrane, I'm going to link the article and
Oh,
the
sweet.
Jim
Thanks, man.
Agapito video in the show notes. Everybody out there, thank you so much for checking those things out. Taron, what a pleasure, man. Thank you for being here.
It's been super awesome. I really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me and stuff like that too. Yeah, it's been great.
Sometimes you must protect yourself. Fuck around, resourceful, resilient. A power through the waves of disappointment. Maybe not quite thriving, but I'm buoyant. I am at peace these days. Give and take a fit of blinding rage. I can't seem to shake the belief that there's a limit.